Welcome to SILS Connections. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Lori Haight, and our guest today is Alani Perry, talking about what you know, who you know, and knowing you. If anyone has any questions, please use the chat box and I'll share those, or there'll be time for questions at the end if you'd like to ask them directly. Alani, I'll let you introduce yourself and begin your talk.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Alani Perry. I'm a 2011 BSIS grad, and I am a lead business systems analyst. So I've got a presentation. Wasn't sure how many people were coming, so we might not go into full detail on everything, but I'll get through the slides. So I'm going to try to share. Just as a quick note, I've got a backup computer connected to Zoom in case something happens. And if both of those fail, I'll be back on my phone and we'll make this happen. The joys of working from home in the middle of a pandemic. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll just ask for someone to verbally confirm in a moment that they can see. Sorry, 1 second. It's giving me 20 million screens that I don't actually have. There we go. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Green screen slide deck?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. So thanks, guys. I wanted to take some time out. Lori reached out a couple months ago, and I'm glad we had a chance to connect. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you might find helpful as you're navigating your next steps, or if you're considering SILS as a place where you want to study and grow, and how you can sort of leverage what you learn and then what you know, how you can connect to others, and how you can sort of know thyself to be more effective and successful in the things that you desire in your career and actually outside as well. So I'm taking a little twist on the saying, it's not what you know, but who you know. It needs an update. There are a couple of things that I found that have worked for me in my progression as a SILS alum that I like to go back and share because they kind of get glossed over, or people don't necessarily understand the pieces that come into play that I wanted to talk through today. So what you know, as in recognizing the potential of what you know. So there's a lot of great benefits you get from studying information, and we'll talk through that. Who you know, so networking and connection is definitely an important thing that you should be excited about and always honing your career. But we'll talk about kind of what that looks like and how you can support that circle of connection. And knowing you. So there's what you've learned and the people that you have made connections with, but being able to bring that all together with the things that make you you, that define how you view the world, is really your secret sauce and how you kind of create your own path. And I've sort of seen this play out a bit in how my career's progressed, and I'll happily share those things. So we'll go through each of those sections, and we'll pause for questions, and then I think at the end there might be some more conversation based off Lori's intro. So the next slide is what you know. So this is recognizing the potential of what you know. So I wanted to pause. It's 2020. It's the middle of a pandemic. Let's all take a minute, take a deep breath, and also give yourself a round of applause. Give yourself a round of applause because you are here at this moment. Give yourself a round of applause because you are still vibrantly engaging, and give yourself a round of applause because the fact that you're in this presentation or viewing it means that you have chose or are considering choosing to study in detail the glue and antimatter and source that binds our world together. You are literally looking at the meta things that make our world possible. And by what I mean by that is you've chosen to study information. one of the things that I've learned as a business analyst, and we'll talk a bit more about what that is and what that has become and what that looks like currently, is that irrespective of what organization you're in, what job you choose, where you feel like you want to contribute, there's always a need for someone to be looking at the meta details of how we individually process information, how that happens on a global scale with other people, how other people share that information and disseminate it and understand it themselves. And now moving forward, how information learns to learn about itself. And by that, I'm talking about AI and other similar things. But having the perspective that you get by looking at the way information moves, is created, is disseminated, exists in different ecosystems, different spheres, organizations, within friend groups, within organizational structures, within libraries, within technology, gives you a leg up in really any industry, because every industry, every company, everything is reliant upon being able to convey a thought, convey a idea, convey a product, convey a portion of information. Some people even information as a service to a larger group of people, and making sure it's understood, both from a monetary standpoint so that your customers buy it, whoever they are, but also internally as an organization so that you stay collaborative and you stay effective. And I say all that to say that with SILS, what I've learned is that you can pick a door, any door, even now, even when your door is probably in your house and the door that you're using is your computer to connect with others. Because there is applicability of all your coursework and everything that you can learn about information in any field. So I just started typing items that I know people who've worked, roles that I know people have occupied, or roles that I've considered myself, and I ran out of space. So I just thought it'd make a cool graphic, but literally pick whatever industry or position you'd like. And there's some applicability for applying what you understand about how information moves and how it exists to it that will lead you to success. And I can say that personally, because that's kind of how I found business analysis. When I was in UNC, I was a dual major. I got my BS in information science, and I also got what would be the equivalent of a bachelor's of arts in psychology. At the time, UNC didn't confer dual degrees. I don't know if that's still the case, but what I really enjoyed about both of those studies is I got to understand like information at the infinitesimal level, like how we cognitively process it, and then understand it at the macro level about how organizations use information to share ideas. And it was really cool because you could see how small things like heuristics and things, how we break down and remember bits of information. So for example, for those of you who still phone numbers, I'm dating myself, but at one point in time, they weren't saved in a phone, you had to know them. You could remember them in chunks. So this is not a real phone number, but you like 1-846-555-2000 would be like a commercial. And your brain remembers that by sing-songing it and chunking it into different pieces of information. At the time when I was studying this, and it may have evolved because I haven't quite looked at a cognitive psych book in a minute, but your brain can hold around 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information. And I started looking at that and then thinking about how that related to how organizations tend to convey a thought or break down a need or a problem into smaller chunks to get it accomplished, and how a BA sort of works with that. So as a business analyst, I would work with a company that has a larger problem, like we need a new intranet. That one's very, very recent. And that idea of understanding the problem, the old intranet doesn't satisfy our needs for X, Y reason, this is the things we want to solve moving forward, can get broken down into smaller and smaller tasks that become requirements, that become things that you compartmentalize and build over time to deliver a bigger thing. And depending upon, how you do that, those little chunks of work can be called sprints. Those particular requirements can be called stories, or they can just be basic statements of things that should be satisfied when that particular application is built. And being able to see that kind of at the very small level and then going to the very large level really excited me. And I got vocabulary on how to explain that through taking INLS 382, Information Systems and Analysis and Design. I still, on occasion, reference my textbook because those concepts, they're still very foundational to what I use today. And then organizational effectiveness is taking them into action in organizations. So as a BA, I speak the geek and translate the business jargon. So I liaise among very technical people who are responsible for meeting an information need, usually through technology. It doesn't have to be. There are BAs who sit on a process side and they start looking at ways people get things accomplished that might not necessarily require a new app, a new software, a new hardware storage solution. But that's typically where I've been. And I'm able to translate that into business jargon by understanding on the part of any business I'm in, the part that's making money, the part that's interfacing with customers, the part that needs to just be able to get their job done, what their needs are, and articulating them back to those who might be a little more technically savvy and who might be developers and coders and testers. And while I'm not myself a developer, I am conversant enough through my applied studies in SILS as well as my own personal education to be able to help and support and partner with my development teams to identify those solutions and to help my business partners understand what is and isn't feasible for their asks, which is what I really enjoy about the work that I do. And those asks, as I alluded to earlier, are described in requirements. So that is the currency that I deal in. And I want to understand the condition and capabilities that must be met to meet your information needs, is how I would position that to one of my business clients, or understanding what conditions or capabilities must be met to meet the technical needs, as I might position it to my development teams. It's afforded me the ability to work in a bunch of different industries. Right now, I'm in software service. I just had a tour of duty, so to speak, in pharmaceutical and healthcare, but I've worked in the government sector with insurance. It's been fun because all of these industries need information. And all the technologies that move this information throughout those organizations are varied, but the need for analysis and understanding them is the same. So I've been able to touch on a lot of these different things and sort of wet my whistle on a lot of different technologies. Enough, in fact, that I can learn enough to, again, make recommendations to a client on what makes sense for them, help my development team ideate on solutions that we hadn't considered before based on what's available. But it's just all kind of distilled down into understanding what information is needed and how it can be moved and leveraged. So I say all that to say that is the what, and why that section's the longest in my presentation, because I really value the what of what SILS does. The who you know is what you kind of learn and what you hear about. Well, you must network, you must connect with people. That's how you move up. That's how you find the next opportunity. And while all that's true, it's very important to make connections, but they need to be purposeful. And when you are new to an organization, it's really helpful to kind of understand and embrace the perspective that you offer. So a lot of times what you'll find, and I found this repeatedly in my career because I have often moved to a different position because I was curious about it. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to expand in a different arena, which means a lot of times I'm a newbie. But what I've learned, and what I learned when I first graduated, was if you get comfortable with being new, if you get comfortable with your own experience in areas and seek out perspectives of others, you'll go very far. People love to teach what they don't know, and being able to come everything with that sort of bright-eyed perspective of what can I learn from you goes a lot further than just dropping off your business cards or saying, hey, doing the finger guns, and something that's very kind of disingenuous or not really authentic to who you are. goes a long way if you can sort of leverage that connection to your advantage. And it's not even to your advantage, it's just an organic thing that happens when you connect with other people. So when I graduated, I started a financial services company, and I was fresh out of college. They put me on production support, which was really cool because I could see what things were coming in, applications that were having issues, and I could go research what they were supposed to do, what the requirements were, and figure out where were things missed and how do we fix it. And I did that for about 6 months. And then what happened was our team, we had a transition on our team, and we had this large initiative that required us to merge all of these huge systems that underpinned how we did financial services for our customers together, because they were both sort of disparately doing different things. One was brokerage and one was 401k. So they weren't really together, and they needed to be together so that you could do something which was then cool called ETF trading. There was a BA who had architected all of the requirements for both of these disparate systems from way back in the day. She didn't want to do it anymore. They were short a person, and that person was me. It was a $9.9 million project, and I had graduated from SILS 1.5 years prior. I was shaking in my boots. I was terrified. I was scared. But I was honest. I found my colleagues and I said, hey, you all seem to think I can do this. I'd like to surprise myself. These are the things I don't know. Here's what I want to learn. And we delivered the project, and I was able to do so through mentorship and help. And it was like my first sort of aha moment that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But more so, it allowed me to connect with my colleagues who had been at the company for years and were very much willing and wanting to help me succeed because they were excited about the fact that I cared enough to ask them questions. And it gave them a break from their day-to-day of what they were focusing on to help me. And I have mentors that I still keep in touch with 10 years later from that. So I think being curious, being authentic, being comfortable with the fact that you're new helps you when you first start out, helps you no matter what job you go to. It's helping me now. I just started a new position, and while I feel like I'm very much getting my sea legs, so to speak, it gets faster to get to ramp up. It's still a perspective that I kind of like to have. And that newness and that wanting to solve a problem carries you far, not only as a business analyst, but just as someone who is literally trying to understand how to take information and use it for themselves and use it for the benefit of others. There are ways to do that now creatively to kind of connect with people. I know we're sort of all home looking like as I am with you now through a computer screen, but you can kind of connect with people with still asking for coffee. Virtual coffee still helps. A lot of people want to break from their day to talk about anything else, and a smile and someone who just wants to ask them about what they do and why they do it is a breath of fresh air. Seeking affinity groups in the organizations that you're in. So I've always been involved in like employee resource groups. At the financial service company, I was on their diversity committee. I came back home to the Triangle and took a position at MetLife, and they had just moved down here from New York, and I had been working for about 3 or 4 years, 3 years I think, and they were hiring all of students like you, SILS grads, UNC grads in general, people from state, people from that other blue Duke, and they were all starting and very excited to get started, but nervous. They'd never worked in a company before. They didn't, things like how does the copier work or what is this corporate email thing were things that were missed because I had the privilege of having a onboarding program that kind of recognized that new hires might have a different set of needs at my first gig. So when that wasn't at MetLife, I started a mentorship program, and it was called the Young Professionals Group. The name was questionable. In retrospect, we always thought about the young. I don't know if it was necessarily inclusive enough, but it evolved into what is now MetLife Technical University over years and with other contributions from many other people. But that seed was started because we saw a need and we capitalized on it in a way that made us feel like we were contributing back. So I say that join an affinity group. and also do some virtual conferences. A lot of things are free right now, and I'll share some in a moment. I thought it was the next slide, but it's a slide after. So there are things like All Things Open is a fantastic tech conference. If that's of interest to you, it covers a myriad of open source topics and just general topics in the tech space, and it's free. We'll have information about that. There's Meetup, where you can find other groups. Meetup is kind of like college clubs, but for graduated adults. And you can find the people on Meetup from your technical perspective, or just random things you're interested in, like ultimate frisbee, whenever we're able to go back outside again. But even online, if you want to meet and connect with people and talk about your passions, Meetup's a great place to do that, great place to connect and meet with people. So I say those are ways that you can connect with people, but also it's a cycle, it's a circle. So make sure you always go back and help those behind you. And make sure you always reach out and help those who are helping you. I know a lot of times you feel like you're inexperienced and you can't help this person who is so amazing and they're such a great mentor, but you offer a perspective that they don't. So that natural things that come out of those organic conversations you have with people, those are things that help foster connections that last a lifetime. So be open and honest and willing to share and connect. And these are some of the opportunities that I alluded to 2 slides ago about where you can connect virtually with people to start that conversation and to find those mentors and to tell other people and meet other people who might benefit from your mentorship. So there's All Things Open, which is on October 19th. This year it's October 19th through the 21st, I believe, but it's free. It's a fantastic conference. Meetup is a great place to go. Just meetup.com, just put in your local area. There are 50 at the point last year when I made this slide, there were 50 plus tech meetups in the area, one of which is my own. I co-lead Women in Tech Allies, which is open to actually all genders, with the view of growing diversity in tech. And we meet and we'll have our meetup on the 15th of this month talking about Scrum. So I'll share this deck out. Please check out our website or any of the ones that are in the deck and join us. That'd be cool. I'd love to see you. And people would love to connect with you in any of these avenues. So lastly, because I know we want to get to questions, I want to talk about knowing you. Bring it all together and basically combining it with what makes you, well, you. It's one thing to say, I know the things. It's one thing to say, I know the people. But if you know yourself, then you have a leg up on all of that. And you can sort of make it be representative of what gifts you bring, because you all bring gifts. What gifts you bring to any organization that you decide to be a part of. And you kind of get at that by figuring out your personal why. And this gets a little not so academic, maybe not so scientific, maybe might bridge on the woo-woo depending upon what particular perspective you have. But sit with yourself and figure out what brings you joy and makes your heart sing. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What fascinates and inspires you? That's important. And it's okay even if you don't really have a word for it. If your favorite thing to do while you were in school was, I don't know, I'm going to go back to saying ultimate frisbee. I really liked playing ultimate frisbee. Well, sit with that. You may or may not be able to be a professional ultimate frisbee player. I don't know if that's a thing, but it could be. But what do you like about that? Keep asking yourself why. If your why is you like the competitiveness of it, you like the collaborative team spiritness of it, you like the expansiveness of it. Identify what it is, that feeling that you want and that you like, and hold on to it so that when you're deciding what opportunities feel right for you, you can preserve that. What are you most proud of that you've already done? What made you feel like I have climbed the mountaintop, I have done this, I am so proud of myself, I will applaud myself forever for the fact that I got here. Distill that down. What in it made you feel that way? Hold on to it so that when you make decisions about where you want to go, you preserve that feeling. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, what impact do you want to make on people? What do you want people to say when you aren't around? What feeling do you want people to have when you aren't around? Hold on to that. Distill that and use that and those other things that you just worked through to help you figure out what opportunities make sense for you. And you You will sign up for a job and you'll try it and it might not be a good fit and you'll move on to the next. Or you'll find something you feel like this is what you could do for the rest of your entire life, and you'll wake up one day and that might change. But as long as you anchor yourself on those things that bring you joy while you're connecting with other people and while you're holding on to what you've learned, you'll always figure out your way. So you can kind of work on that by pulling that together in, I call it a you statement. Some people call it the elevator pitch. But it's how you would describe that to other people after you've sort of sat with it and described it to yourself. It's a short, persuasive speech that you introduce yourself, and it can be your product or your personal brand, the thing you want to bring to the world, your company, your purpose, and you just kind of get it into like 30 seconds or less if you can, but it kind of helps you summarize you. And sometimes I've heard, and I used to feel like, man, elevator pitches sound so practiced and stodgy and no one really listens or cares, but you're actually not always writing it for other people. You're writing it for yourself, because once again, you know thyself, you can make better decisions about what you want. So I enjoy looking at this as sort of an introspective exercise, and at the end shining it up so that you could tell it to someone who you really wanted to impress in an elevator, and you had 30 seconds from floor A to floor B to get them to hire you or invest in you or want to invest in you in any way, monetarily, more time, more energy. Shine that up for that view. But when you're writing it for you, because it needs to be authentic to who you are. And I took that to myself for this presentation and took a stab at kind of evolving mine, and yours will evolve because what you are passionate about will change. What you're doing will definitely change. But if you hold true to the things that bring you joy, that make you happy, that are part of your personal why, you'll kind of feel like even though it's changed, it's still the same because it's still you. So mine is, I'm a lead business analyst with a decade of experience in driving collaborative solutions across many industries. I'm also the co-lead of the Tech Diversity Focus Meetup, Women in Tech Allies. I'm passionate about making sense of ambiguity through servant leadership. And I get up every day with the goal of leaving people and processes better than I found them. And I had to sit with myself for a minute and figure out how I got there. And that's the one thread that I found throughout my whole career, is that the thought, I don't join organizations and do business analysis because I want the application to be better. That's not the end all thing at the end of the day. I want the person who's using that to have the efficiency they need to get their job done, the satisfaction that they need to do whatever it is they need to accomplish, the delight in the experience, so that they can share that joy with someone else. And it's a little airy-fairy, but it's a driver for me. And so it took me a minute, but I kind of got to that, and that is my evolving me statement for now. We'll see where it goes. But it's now your turn. You're gonna take what you know, connect with who you are, and anchor in your knowledge of you. And from there, you'll find your way. So with that, I will take questions.
Alani, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. It's always so interesting to hear people's perspectives on how they get that. And I think you did an excellent job of having those main points where it's not just what you know and who you know, but how you know yourself. I think that is an important part that can sometimes get dropped. I'm going to ask a few questions, but this is also the time for everybody else on this call to ask questions. So I will pause in between my questions in case anybody else has something that comes up. But one of the things I wanted to, while I have this time with you, is to talk about operationalizing this approach, because you're very good at it and I've seen it work really well for you over the years. It's funny, I started in 2012, so we never overlapped at SILS, but I'm glad we got a chance to meet when you were an alum and I was working at SILS. So one of the operational pieces that I get asked by students a lot is, if there's a funnel effect at SILS, right? Information is everywhere. You can do anything with it. And then as you keep going, you have to get to the narrower end of the funnel because you can't do everything at the same time. And so you touched on talking about the aha moments from SILS and how to work that in. But do you have any suggestions on how people would summarize their SILS experience to work into that you statement?
Yeah, I would. I feel like it might help to have like a Venn diagram of kind of the things you've learned and the things that you're passionate about. And like, if you could think of things that people have said about you, conversations you've had with people, what, I hate to say your personal brand, but like, what do people say are your strengths? And sort of put it in a Venn diagram, and where things overlap, kind of take that and start looking at different places that make sense as a starting point. So what career you pick when you graduate is not always going to be what you do for the rest of your life. Most likely it's not. In all clarity, in all honesty, I came in SILS because I was going to be a librarian. My grandmother's a librarian. My mother's a librarian. I spent my entire high school experience working for Parkwood Library and my college experience working for Parkwood Library and Davis Library. I was going to be a librarian. And then my senior year hit, and I was reminded by my boyfriend then, my husband now, that kind of needed to take the GRE and kind of hadn't started studying for it and kind of needed to figure out what I was going to do. So I said, well, the library thing is really cool, but so is the systems analysis course. I'm gonna go to a job fair and see what happens. And that's what I did. But what I liked about both of those in that Venn diagram that I drew for myself is my mother's a librarian, so we'll keep this amongst ourselves. I'm not a big reader. Like, I like an audiobook. Books are fantastic. Think they're amazing, just not really my thing. So it wasn't the books that drove me to want to be a librarian. I think they're amazing. Books are fantastic. But it was literally organizing things. It was it was the fact that I can't do it now, but I could do it then. I knew the Dewey Decimal System down to the second decimal place, and if you gave me a topic, I could quote it back to you like I was a nerd. But I liked that there was a place for everything, and everything had its place. And what I liked about systems analysis is that I could start putting stuff in boxes, but not for the sake of putting them in boxes, but for the same reason you use Dewey or Library of Congress, so that people can find them. And I write requirements and distill information so that people can find things easier.
So thank you for that. So pre-COVID, we would be going to career fairs and we'd actually be talking to people on the spot. And I think there's still opportunities, like you pointed out in your presentation, for networking. And so how technical have you found from either side, either from hiring people or from being a candidate yourself? How technical is it? How important is it to get technical quickly for these roles where you're a liaison between the users and the product?
So when I've been interviewing, what I've learned and just kind of what I've seen is if you don't necessarily have to come in knowing the technology, but you need to come in with the desire to learn. You need to show an eagerness and a propensity to, and a curiosity to want to pick up on stuff because you want to learn about it more. Now, I'm not like technically conversant in all of the tech stacks that we talked about on the deck. I mean, I'm conversant. I'm not a developer. Please don't ask me to develop your enterprise application. We'll be here all day. But I know enough, and I've had enough conversations, and I've studied enough to kind of be able to understand conceptually what those different pieces are and what's critical to kind of make them work. And a lot of that is not so much, it's been a lot of Googling, but it's also been a lot of just honestly asking someone who I know has more knowledge than me to explain it to me, because they make sure they know it by teaching it to me, and then I get to know it, so we all benefit. But it's having that curiosity and that desire to want to learn that I found has been has gotten me more opportunities and has been more helpful to me than knowing one specific particular development language. And that's as a business analyst. Now, if you are a developer, you're going to need to learn how to code, you're going to need to know the basics fundamentals of coding, but you don't need to know every language. You need to know one and be able to learn others because they're all kind of conceptually similar. And so it's just, and that permeates every role that I've seen kind of information related. You need to be able to learn, and you don't have to necessarily come in knowing it out of the gate. And once you get into those more advanced levels, like I'm not going to go and be someone's data scientist tomorrow. I have to recognize my limitations, but I could be a data analyst. I'd probably go back and study a bit on business and intelligence tools and how I can get a little bit more conversant in that. So I personally do self-education, you know, Udemy and all of these other sort of free courses or inexpensively paid courses, or LinkedIn has Linda to stay up on things. So don't stop learning, but the fact that you're willing to learn, I feel like in more roles is more important than you know everything. Because honestly, if you know everything, why should they hire you?
Right. You're right, the wrong job. So you explained in your presentation, one of my questions was going to be, when do you know to go to the next opportunity? And you were talking about the curiosity. Can you talk a little bit about kind of sticking your neck out or sticking your toe in that other water? And how do you know when it's a jump and when it's just people are saying, oh, you know, it's an interesting fit, you could do this too? Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen that happen in your career?
Yeah. So sometimes it's a push, sometimes it's a pull. Because the one thing I like about business analysis is it's problem solving, but it's project based. I tend to get excitement around changing things up. And depending upon how you choose to navigate your career, as long as you do that with the honesty and the integrity of and true to your authentic curiosity, it doesn't necessarily look like job hopping, especially in the tech space, because I think most people are in the same job for 2 to 3 years. But it's not that I would be in a position where like, okay, this feels like a natural ending. I've learned the things that I feel like I can learn here. That's not to say that I'm negating future possibilities, but I am entertaining others and having conversations with recruiters and learning about different things and seeing where my skill set could be grown and kind of doing my own pros and cons list. But every choice I've made was about kind of finding where I felt like I can make the most impact to others, to another organization, where I could learn the most. So places where I felt like I looked at the job description and I checked like 40, 30, 20% of those boxes. If I felt a compel, I'd still do it anyway. And that's one thing you kind of, once you've gotten your sea legs, so to speak, you've done your first position and you feel like you understand foundationally where you're at, you kind of have to navigate your own career. And the choices I've made, to be honest, I've always taken a more progressively senior role and I've always taken more money. So it's not, or if I chose to move laterally, it's because I wanted to grow in a different way. I've worked in companies where I've done really well and they were pushing me up to different positions. But when I sat with myself, it wasn't where I saw what I needed. And you go through different phases in life. Sometimes when you're starting out, like you want to work, you want to learn, you want to do all the things. I've been doing this for 10 years. Like BA is what I'm doing now and I'm excited about it, but I can see my career going in different arenas and making decisions that are strategic enough to give me the ability to explore those different arenas is sort of where my brain's at now. So it's kind of, it's an art and a science. So like, I mean, if you don't understand anything on the job rec that you're applying for, don't. But if you feel like you can learn it, if you feel like you check some of the boxes or you can, that you see yourself in that role, then try it. The worst anyone can tell you is no. Now, always have a job if you can and look for one. Don't just quit and say, hey, I hope the world will come to me. I mean, it could happen. That's not usually my MO. But you know, again, go with what you feel.
I'm going to pause and see if any of our other audience members have a question.
Yes. Can I start?
You can.
So Alani, I want to talk a little bit about the meetup group that you started, right? The Women in Tech Allies. I'm not sure if you remember, but we previously met, and I stopped by at one event a long time ago. I couldn't remember exactly when.
Yeah, I remember. I thought it was a SILS event I knew you from, but that too.
Right,
Sorry.
right. Yes. So how has the process been like, and how do you think having started that group affected your decision on how your outlook and how you wanted to progress in your career, and especially with the pandemic rolling in, having that kind of community, right? And I'm sure a lot of people feel that they sort of lose touch in certain networks outside of their immediate family or, I don't know, work, right? How do you think having that community affected your year so far, and how will that continue to impact your career moving forward?
Sure. Fantastic question. And thank you for coming to one of our meetups. Yeah, so Women in Tech Allies is actually founded by co-lead Susan Wands, and I joined about a year in. She had this vision that she'd been going to these meetups and she wasn't seeing a lot of meetups that had a lot of women going, and she wanted to change the focus. Now she is our developer, so she does a lot of our hard coding tech education, and I do more of requirements analysis, project management, that type of education. But the point of our group is to help those who are trying to transition into tech with the view of growing more gender diversity in tech. But again, we're open to all, because you can't make a decision unless everybody's at the table. Like, you can't make inroads is what I mean. And so that really changed my view of what it means to sort of take control of your own path and career, because it started off as a hobby that Susan and I did, and it started off as a project at a job. We both worked at the same company, and they were supportive and still are a fantastic sponsor of us, to let us sort of create this opportunity for the community to learn a bit more about tech. And it grew from 20 members to 1,500 people on Meetup in like 2 years. And it pushed me out of my comfort zone. I was developing the website. I was managing social media. I'm still the director of engagement. So for the first, and we created a different niche of how those meetups happened, because we made them a little bit more social, a little bit more fun. For those of you who are of age, there was some wine. There was always some music. We tried to make it like a lighthearted thing to do after work, where you're also connecting with other people in your industry and also being able to learn something that could help you either get your foot in the door or make you more successful at your job. So doing that kind of really helped me understand that second part of like networking and connection. I had done a lot on my own, trying to figure out, again, that huge project that I had done when I first graduated, and other sort of ways that I could make connections at a company. But this was the first time I had like tried to make industry connections just in general across. We weren't all in the same company. We were all just trying to move in the same direction. And with Susan and I are just sort of ideating on, these are the things we're seeing, this is feedback we're getting, how can we help? It really made it possible for me to kind of see how you can, just by organically choosing decisions that resonate with you and make sense, and that are kind of in alignment with other people's collaborative needs, define your own path. And it's something that I love to have. COVID's put in a little bit of a different perspective on that. We are still connecting. We actually did have a period where we kind of went quiet for a while because we were still we had planned this entire year. We did not have a month where we didn't have sponsors. We did not have a month where we didn't have speakers. We did not have a month where we were doubling up on months. We usually try to keep it to one a month. This whole year was planned and we were so excited. And then 2020 hit. And then trying to manage our different job workloads because those shifted. And Susan, my colleague, has a cute little boy, but she had to be a teacher and an employee and a co-lead. So for a while, it got a little quiet, but we're actually coming back. We had a meetup about, I think week before last, and we've got one coming up on the 15th. We are leveraging our own technical tools. So we're in Slack and we've got a newsletter going. We've revamped the website. We're trying to make sure that we have the ability to connect with people outside of Meetup. We like Meetup, but Meetup has had some issues as of late, so we don't want them to be our only source for gathering people's information, financial issues. So in case this happens, we want to make sure we can keep our community. But yeah, we've got our website, and we are actually Susan will be speaking at All Things Open. So please join the free conference and check her talk out. I'll be tweeting about it later today for more info, and I'll also share that with Lori. But there's a need to continue having community, and that's what we want to do.
Well, thank you for answering. Very insightful. Right.
Great. Any other questions? Well, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to Alani and the audience for joining us today. For the audience members, please be on the lookout for an evaluation to go out soon so that we can collect your thoughts on ways we can make improvements on SILS Connections and any ideas for future events. So I want to thank you for joining, and hopefully the recording will be up on the SILS website shortly. So I will email everybody who attended today the deck if Alani wants to send that to me, and then you'll have the information that was shared there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure talking with you.